hijab game is tight.
Whenever I'm on a panel where I'm like, I am who I am. Everyone knows.
I can't get used to these eyeglasses and this hijab thing. You know, I'm just like,
Good night.
Okay, Nicola, we're ready.
You're live.
Okay. Oh God, I got Google ready. Oh, assalamu alaikum. We are live. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to About Islam, the fantastic online platform that presents mainstream Islam to the world. I'm Layla Abdullah Poulos, and this is the second panel of the Black Muslim Authors Conference, a wonderful conference that is going to be happening all Black History Month. If you checked out the kickoff, you were part of the kickoff, we had a great time with our panelists and everything like that, and the recording is still available. But today we're going to be focusing on children's books. Do not forget to visit us at www.aboutislam.net. Thank you to our wonderful sponsors, About Islam, and all our great sponsors. Hot Hijab, which you ladies got your Hot Hijabs on. Look at them. They're all fire. Everyone got their Hot Hijab on. Muslim Anti-Racism Collaborative, Muslim Girl Reads, NBA Muslims, Every Kind of Lady, Heart, Women and Girls, Daybreak Publishing, African American Muslim Alliance of Tampa, and the Muslim Connection, all our great sponsors and everything like that. Inshallah, we're going to be focusing on children's books. I'm so glad that this panel is happening. And this panel includes a wonderful group of authors that have written some really intriguing and interesting children's books. So like Black authors tend to do, they've taken the genre and they've made it their own, inshallah. I will not be moderating. We have a terrific moderator, author, educator, all around great Muslimah, Juwayriyah. She will be on moderating this panel. Assalamu alaikum, Juwayriyah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, everyone. Salam alaikum, sisters. Very excited, as you said, very excited about this panel.
I'm excited too. I'm going to be watching it from my bed.
Okay.
You guys have a great discussion. Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
So very quickly, we're going to just go through some bios because we have a dynamic panel of sisters who have done wonderful things. So we're going to start with Sister Ameenah Muhammad Diggins. Briefly tell us about yourself. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Firstly, thank you so much for inviting me to be on this illustrious panel. My name is Ameenah Muhammad Diggins. I'm a children's book author, entrepreneur, based out of New Jersey, originally from Philadelphia, PA. I published two children's books, one on the way, actually. And my book, Bashir and the Amazing Bean Pie, made history in 2019 as the first children's book to be adapted into a stage play by a major U.S. museum. We had about 114 shows at the Please Touch Museum, alhamdulillah. And I'm just excited to be here. I'm also the founder of Halt and Muslim, which is a lifestyle brand for Muslim women in the United States.
Thank you, alhamdulillah. We're going to go down to Sister Janette Grant. Please introduce yourself with your bio.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Janette Grant. I am a publisher, desktop publisher of My Works Publishing. We focus on publishing books for just the greater society, but highlighting Islam and the bridge between Islam and all cultures, particularly the Abrahamic traditions. I've published 3 children's books and a couple of spiritual science fiction books, and I'm grateful to be included.
Thank you. I'm going to go up to Sister Nafisah Abdul Rahim.
Assalamu alaikum. Like she said, my name is Nafisah Abdul Rahim. I am by profession an intervention specialist. I currently work with students that have severe behavioral problems, help them to correct their behavior. I am from Cincinnati, Ohio. I was born in Covington, Kentucky. I have 5 beautiful children, and I've been married for 15 years. And I've only written one book so far, or published one book so far, and that's Zara's New E-Dress. So I'm very excited to be a part of this panel and to learn about the other authors as well, and appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Nafisah. And last but definitely not least, Sister Sharia Schultz, please introduce yourself. Alhamdulillah.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Sharia Schultz, as you just mentioned, and I want to first begin by thanking you for allowing me to be a part of the panel and, sharing the work that I'm doing. I am the author of a book, My Voice Is My Superpower. I am also the CEO and founder of a nonprofit organization, Buddy Speaks. Buddy Speaks Foundation provides education and awareness to help prevent and end childhood sexual assault. Our goal is to change the way our community think, respond to, and react, and support survivors of sexual assault. We do that by supporting survivors, by bringing awareness through our social media platform, by with my book, my very book that I wrote called My Voice Is My Superpower. Oftentimes parents find it very, very difficult to talk about sexual abuse and they don't know how. So I wrote this book and created it to be the bridge for the parents. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I'm currently a resident of the state of Delaware. And, I'm excited about what it is that we're doing today and to bring representation to the Muslim community and the African American community so that we can break the silence and change the stigma and be able to protect our children and support adult survivors. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah, that's so great. I love what you do. And we're going to dig into it a little bit more. And as Sister Layla has said, I am author and educator Juwayriyah, born and raised in Springfield, Massachusetts. I have a master's degree in writing and literature, and I am a reading intervention specialist here in the Springfield area. And I've been writing since 2006. My first novel was published by Muslim Writers Publishing. The first novel, urban fiction, Muslim fiction novel in the United States. And then in 2009, we published the first book that featured a Muslim family dealing with autism, and that was Hen's Hands. Also as an autism advocate and a parent of an autist, bringing awareness to special needs community in the Muslim community and making safe spaces for them to be accepted and to learn about Islam in our community and be full-fledged members of our Muslim community. This was an important panel for me, of course. I think the growing up Muslim in the United States, the representation for Muslim children on the page was very slim to nil, right? There wasn't a lot out there on various topics. We have such diversity on this panel with so many different subjects, not just I'm a Muslim, or, see my hijab or whatever, but really dealing with the joy and not just the joy, but also some of the challenges that happen in our families, in our communities, and making a bridge to the larger community that we're a part of. So my first question to the panel is really on what inspired you to write your story? And I'm going to start with Sister Nafisah.
Zara's New E-Dress is kind of a mixture of me raising my daughter now and how my mother raised myself. Growing up, we for Eid is always a special time. You want to get dressed up, you want to look nice and all those kind of things. So I kind of drew from that experience of, oh, I want to look like my friends that may be from Pakistan. So I want the salwar kameez or 1 year. Then the next year I want to wear an abaya. And then as I grew older, and my mom would make them for me, actually, by the way. So she would look at them. Sometimes she would use a pattern or make her own. And then I grew up and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm American, I'm African-American. I want something that reflects who I am. Everybody, when you go to Eid, you see everybody in their like traditional garbs and stuff. And you're like, oh, so one day it just hit me. It may have been around Eid, I'm not exactly sure, but I was thinking like, oh, you know what, I should just put this into a book. I've always wanted to write. I started writing, I think when I was in 6th grade. We had an author's activity that all the school participated in, where we wrote our own books, and then they got their own labels. They were in our library, so it was kind of like, ooh, you know, my book is in the library, we can go read it and that kind of thing. So that's all of that, and my experience with the whole wanting to be true to myself, and to say like it's okay to wear something that is a little bit more, you know, not what some would seem as traditional Islamic garb, but kind of put your own little flair on it as being African American Muslim. So that's how Zara's New dress came about.
And I thought when I was doing it, and when I was putting together the end of the year book list of Muslim authors, and I saw that book, I was like, that's such a universal story for American Muslim children. Like, where do I fit into the Muslim community? How do I represent myself? I definitely remember that struggle as well. So I can't wait for my book to come and read it to my children. Sister Sharia.
What inspired me? I am a survivor of childhood sexual assault. And with my experience, I didn't tell right away. I kept quiet for a long time, and then later I did disclose my abuse. So as a parent of children, when I was living in Dubai, I said, well, I want to have a book for my children, to talk to my children, to help protect them. And when I told one of the visitors to come, I said, but make sure you have a book with children that are Black. And, you know, when their uncle, this is their pretend uncle, when he came to visit, he said, I'm so sorry. He brought me tons of books. And he said, but I can't find one book with an African American. So that was the beginning of my journey. But when I returned back to America, and, you know, being an educator, and I'm a special educator, and I've been in the industry since '95, in teaching special ed, you deal with a lot of children who've experienced trauma. And a lot of times their trauma, as a result of their trauma, they're in special ed. Because, you know, children with dyslexia, their auditory processing unit shuts down because they're trying to survive. You know, children, they lose a lot of time in education because they just can't cope. So between that and me being a survivor, and then, you know, all the children that I worked with, and when I lived in UAE who were survivors, and then when I returned home, there was one particular case where there was a special child who is very, very dear to me, and this child disclosed their abuse. And the abuse was so traumatic, and it touched my heart so much that I said, I need to make a change, because I know from being a survivor myself and being a teacher of survivors, and knowing, you know, people with, you know, in your family experience it, and that we don't want to talk about it. How can I help to bridge this gap? How can I change the way our community responds? How can I teach parents? And I said, what's the best way to teach? Either through a song or through a story. But I didn't want it to be a scary story. I wanted to empower children to know that they can tell, that, and to know that they are in charge of their bodies, and that they have rights. So that's why I wrote the book, and with the little icon, Buddy Speaks, to help educate parents so that they can protect their children, and to empower children so that they can speak out and not live in silence for so many years.
Barakallahu fiki. And I think that's really important that you mentioned that you asked somebody to bring you a book about a particular subject, and there wasn't any with a Black character. That is the issue that we've always dealt with in the industry. Representation, whether we're talking about just a larger, you know, population of Black and brown people, or, you know, Muslim representation, it's there's not there. So us writing, you know, this is a long-standing, necessary sadaqah, inshallah, sadaqah jariyah, that we are doing for our communities, and putting out these stories, creating representation, creating new voices, and creating new spaces. And Sister Ameenah Muhammad Diggins knows all about creating new spaces. As she said, her book went to play in the Philadelphia area at now tell me about the museum. But first, your inspiration for that, because it's such a beautiful story, mashallah, and I do know it, but go ahead. Tell everybody else.
So I'm originally from Philadelphia. Grew up in Philadelphia as a Muslim. My family owned or co-owned a bean pie factory, the Ali Bean Pie, which is still being ran by the founder, Brother Rudolph Ali. So I grew up around bean pie. I grew up around as a Muslim. My mother always wanted to be a children's book author. I never had the desire to write. However, when she passed, may Allah have mercy on her soul and grant her paradise, I wanted to fulfill that for her. And she was always big on motivation. That's one of my driving points as well. So I wanted to have, when we talk about representation, a lot of us on this panel are either first or second or third generation Muslims here in America. But how do we make sure that we preserve that for generations to come? Because we see that when we look at history, Islam may start off as something strong in the heart, but as generations go by and by and along, then some of those generations lose that connection to Islam. So what can we do as people living that have either their parents have found their way back to Islam, or we've found our way back to Islam ourselves? How do we make sure that the second generation or the generations after us have those tools to not feel as though they have to sacrifice anything? And that's why, having the opportunity to have the play at the Please Touch Museum, which is it's one of the top five children's museums in the United States. It's in Philadelphia, PA, and we were able to co-write Bashir and the Amazing Bean Pie based off of my children's book that was centered around my upbringing as a Muslim girl, learning how to make bean pie, learning it from her father, and sharing it on Eid Day, and everybody being excited about it, and also highlighting the differences between cultures. So most of us are African American Muslims, but even though we share the same faith as all of our sisters and brothers around the world, culturally we are different, we are distinct. And I felt that there was a void when we talk about highlighting cultures. So having Bashir and the Amazing Bean Pie was really important to me, not just because my first job was cracking thousands of eggs, making thousands of pies, but because I know that was an important part of our history here in America.
Absolutely. I love that story. And when I found out, that, your family was involved with the Ali bean pie, because that's one of the most famous bean pies. I was like, oh my goodness, let me call my Abu, because he was like, that's his favorite bean pie. Like, you guys are famous. Like, and the bean pie is, like you said, that's cultural history that distinguishes Black American Muslims. If you ask a Black American Muslim, one of their favorite treats around Eid time or Ramadan, somebody gonna make a bean pie. Somebody gonna say, I want a bean pie. I need a bean pie. Can you make me a bean pie? I brought my bean pie to Sudan, and I brought it to Kuwait. I brought it to Saudi Arabia. And everywhere that I go, I'm just like, you got to taste this bean pie, because this is lit. This is legit. It's like, made from beans and this. This is our culture. This is what we do. Okay. May not have all the best, ingredients, but we can make something out of nothing. And that's what that really, the resolve of our community to be distinct and to make something that represents us. Sister Janette, please tell us about your inspiration, inshallah.
Okay. My first children's book is Samira's Hijab on the First Day of School. And it was originally written about my son. I am a convert to Islam. So he was in public school and he would wear his kufi to school every day. So seeing how he interacted with his friends, and it's actually based on true events. His friends would see his kufi and ask if I could make, I crochet, so I made the kufis for him. So they asked if I could make the kufis for them as well. So the original story was called Luther's Kufi in the First Day of School. But my publisher thought that I should change it to a girl and the concept of hijab. And I bring that up just to mention, because my son is African American, I had wanted it to be a book about an African American boy and how he represents Islam in the public sphere. But, you know, the publisher at the time thought it would be better to make it about a little girl and her hijab. So I submitted to that. I still want to publish Luther's Kufi in the first day of school. But with Samira's hijab, I went and I changed the concept to an immigrant. So she's the daughter of the immigrants who comes over to the United States from Yemen. Her mother is African American, her father is from Yemen. And she wears her hijab to public school. And she's nervous. She's coming to the US from a different country. She's not familiar with the culture. So she is worried that she'd be accepted. So the story just kind of goes about the introduction of her and how she feels about her hijab, and then reflecting that in school, and how the girls who are there recognize it as something familiar. One little girl is Catholic, so she recognizes that as something that, you know, Mary, the mother of Jesus, peace be upon him, wore. And so that was the motivation for me writing the book. It's important to me because of the concept of girls accepting themselves and not feeling as if they have to remove their hijab because no one else is wearing the hijab. But, you know, it was originally based on a little boy, so that's pretty much it.
Thank you for sharing that. So now we're going to just move into some, you know, authentic conversation here. So I'll bring out some questions, and whoever would like to tackle them, you're free to do so. One thing that, as we were talking about earlier, is the lack of representation that exists in the publishing world. I know we have here on our panelists some who are traditionally published, some who are self-published. I know the self-publishing world is vastly different than the traditional publishing world, but what has been your experience being published? Is it what you thought it would be? Is it different? You know, what were the challenges for you? What are you contending with in the future? And what is your goal moving forward? Raise your hand if you would like to respond. Sharia?
Well, okay, my journey, it was a journey. And Amina knows my journey personally. I thought publishing, I self-published, and I thought it was so difficult. I didn't realize self-publishing wasn't as difficult as it was. However, getting my book out was challenging because of my illustrations. I originally started with another book that I'm going to launch in April, and it was called Buddy Speaks, and it was a book about a male survivor. So every time I went to an illustrator, they did not want to take my story. I had one illustrator, I mean, first of all, the pictures, they were not beautiful because these were not African American illustrators. So when they drew pictures of I wanted Buddy to be cute. I wanted Buddy to be cute. I wanted, because, we're talking about sexual abuse and we're talking about prevention, but I'm doing it in a way that's friendly, in a way that empowers the children. You see, he has a cape on, you can see on the back of my, so, I didn't want it a sad little boy. I wanted, when the children saw this book, they're like, wow. So I must have had at least a dozen illustrators. And, some started and we couldn't even get past the first cover. Then others, we did first 4 covers. And then some, they read the manuscript and they just straight said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Why? Because it was triggering. It was triggering to them because they were survivors. I even developed a relationship with one of my illustrators, and she was ready. And then when we talked about it, and yes, this is great. And then when she read the manuscript, she said it brought back her feelings. It brought back her own experience. So, that was my journey, and it was very, very difficult. And it took longer than a year to get the perfect illustrator for me. But once I started with my illustrator, and he knew the vision, and he's not even from America. We dove in, and for him, it was from his heart as well. So it took us a while, but that was my biggest challenge. Publishing, not publishing, but finding the best illustrator to represent my story. Because it's not just a book. My book is also used as a teaching tool. We have workshops that we use throughout the world, and where I teach body safety to the children. So I teach it online through Zoom. I teach parents. I teach educators. So it's not just a book, but it's a teaching tool. So I had to have something where when you look at my book, it doesn't look scary. It's not a topic that all of us want to shy away from. So that was my biggest hurdle, getting it formatted to the right size, and, and finding the right illustrator.
Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. Illustrators, very hard to deal with alone, and finding the right match for yourself. Sister Ameenah Muhammad Diggins.
Oh, Assalamu alaikum. So I would say, illustrations, I think that even traditionally published books, that's the for children's books or picture books, that's probably one of the things that, is going to sell the book. It's going to be appealing to readers. So I think that all of us share that, that difficulty, even if we are, like I'm in the middle of traditionally publishing now, but just making sure that the pictures represent your manuscript, and also media, and also making those connections with media to make sure that your book is out there and is getting the press and all of that. And I think that that's probably because that was one of my backgrounds. I wasn't as challenged, but I knew that that was something I had to plan for. Like it's not something where you have your publisher and they have the schedule of media set up for you. As a independent author, it is something that you have to make sure that you are conscious and you have a plan, and you know exactly what your objective is for your book.
Sister Nafisah or Sister Janette, would you like to chime in on any challenges, or what moving forward, what would you like to do with the next book?
Well, I also am an independent publisher, so I self-published Samira's Hijab after the original publisher, and then my second and third books are both self-published. And I don't really have any plans right now for any future books, but I know agreeing with Sister Sharia, it is very difficult. It's difficult for just getting the books out there to the audience that I have written it for. So it does take a lot of, I've had to go to like the public library, send copies of books to schools. Like those are like the efforts that I've had to make just to get, the readership that I do currently have. So it is a challenge to do it independently, but I think it's rewarding also because you get the experience of it. You get to learn how to create something on your own and then put it out into the hands of kids who actually read it and can appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree with all of what you said. I think moving forward, we have to dig into this. What sort of support have you seen from the Muslim community with your books? Where are you being supported the most? And anybody can respond.
I think that for me, I think for all of us, I think I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the authors here, and I think all of us have been embraced by our communities. And also what surprised me the most about Bashir and the Amazing Bean Pie is that I was being asked to speak at not African-American schools, or and I was received by all different cultures wanting to learn about African-American history and African-American Muslim history. So for me, that was probably the most shocking. One of my most successful book reads was at a Turkish school. And it was absolutely beautiful to be able to share our culture with other Muslim cultures, and to be asked, answer questions. So I think just having that reception from everyone is really heartwarming.
Go ahead, Sister Nafisah.
Yeah, I wanted to say, all of it kind of was overwhelming because the story is really personal, you know, and I felt like it was only my story. But once the book was out there and other people were reading, I could got, you know, responses from people saying, oh yeah, that was me when I was growing up. My mother did the same thing. So that was pretty neat. And then another aspect that I found that was really neat is the non-Muslim African-American community are interested in the book. And so I'm like, oh wow, I didn't write it for that. I wrote it just for, you know, to, like I said, to tell my story and to give something to my daughter for her to have. But when I found that a lot of people I went to school with, people I grew up with that are not Muslim, they were not only buying the book, but sharing the book, sharing it to different groups that they were in, and just recommending it to different things that they were a part of. That was the most shocking or unexpected result of my book. I just, you know, pretty much thought this would be only applicable or interesting to African-American Muslims. And from the time the book was released, I've had different opportunities to read it to different groups all over. And the response from the children was overwhelming. You know, they're like, oh, this is so great. I'm so glad, you know, this has inspired me to write, and kind of things. That's, you know, mainly what I did not expect to come from the book.
So I love that last comment that you made about inspiring the children to write, because that is the title, inspiring of this panel, inspiring the next generation. Where do you see Muslim authorship, especially in the Black American, Brown Muslim American community? Where do you see that being a reflection? I know for myself, growing up, I didn't meet any African-American Muslim authors growing up. You know, the majority of the books that we had access to were imported from other countries. And on the covers, you know, there were, you know, very, very fair-skinned, either Asian or Arab children on the covers. And the authors were also, you know, Asian or Arab Muslim authors. In our community with this panel, alhamdulillah, we have you all in your communities to represent that. But do you see a push for Muslim youth, especially Black and Brown Muslim youth, to pursue writing in your community? What is happening in your communities with that?
I think, you know, and not just, I guess we're from Philadelphia. We have a lot of great authors out of Philadelphia. You know, Sharia's from Philadelphia originally. I'm from Philadelphia originally. Also, we have Jamila Tompkins Bigelow, one of my favorite children's book authors. She's from Philadelphia, and her book, Mom is Kimar. And my song, my name is a song.
Your voice
My
is
name
a
is a
song.
song.
Yeah.
And then she has 2 more books coming out in 2022. So I think that with you know, all of us here, the more our books are being represented and being, you know, the readership base grows. I know that Umm Juwayriyah, like when you first started, you know, you were one of my, you know, when I got your book, I didn't know you, but I read your book all those years ago. I was inspired. It inspired me. Like, here is, you know, urban fiction from a Muslim perspective. And it was inspirational to see a Muslim woman, you know, write books. Zakiya, when I was a teenager, I was, you know, reading her books. So I think that, you know, when we have these vanguards who write books and then they inspire the next generation, is simply beautiful. And I think that us showing up and doing the work, you know, inshallah, you know, the next generation, the Gen Zers, or I think that's what they're called, will be inspired to, to do bigger and better than what we're doing. When I was growing up, the snowy day, I didn't know that Ezra Jack Keats wasn't Black until I got into college, because my mother, I think she purposely told us that he was Black, but it was one of those things where you wanted to be proud of, books that represented, the Black experience. So I think that the more books that we have, the more inspired the next generation will be.
And what I found through the work that I'm doing, and I work with a lot of survivors and youth survivors, teens, and supporting them, that Muslim and non-Muslim, they found that I want to write too. One of my babies that I'm supporting now, and she said, I want to write a book. I want to write a book, and she's been struggling so hard with her trauma. Her trauma was by way of her father. And I said, let's go, let's do it together. And although she is not Muslim, I am the Muslim who's inspiring her and who's supporting her, and who's that daily check-in person, not only for her to get through her trauma and to know that she's not alone, but to know that she can use her voice to help other teenagers who experience the same type of trauma as her. So, that's what me writing the book and having the platform has done, not only for the Muslim community, because I'm Muslim and I'm representation, but for all the children and the parents who have experienced trauma, and knowing that their voice can be something to help other children who've experienced something just as traumatic as them. And she texted me and she said, I was up until 6 a.m. I was up until 6 a.m. So we're working on affirmation. So I believe that we as authors, we can inspire more children, and we do. And we do with our own story, but also letting them see that just because you're young doesn't mean that you can't do it. And that's what's happening with me.
Sister Janette or Sister Nafisah?
And actually, this panel is so inspiring because it, at least for me personally, because it kind of broadens my perspective of, what I'm doing, and helps me to get clear on, if I do move forward to publish in the future, how I can fine tune my goals. And it made me think about my niece and nephew are both in Islamic school right now, and they both love to write, and they've got the PBS kids writing contest that happens every year. Both of them have won, and I think that is a really good way also to inspire children with writing, at least from in the community, like having writing contests, book readings where authors can come and read their books to them. I think that is the best way to motivate them and expose them to people who look like us, who are writing books, that they can say, I can do that too. I think that is also important. PBS Kids is a huge platform, but if Muslim Reads, was able to implement that type of contest in the Islamic schools, not only Islamic schools, but in the public sphere, I think that could be really motivational as well.
We have MBA Muslims and my nonprofit organization, Muslim Girl Reads. We have sponsored poetry contests in April. I think and we also have done a short story contest as well. So more of that is needed for sure, and more collaboration. And that's what I want to talk about. And we have a question from the audience. We see your question. I'm going to get to it in a minute. But what do you feel is the number one push that you would have for the larger Muslim community? What would be your push for Muslim authorship, especially because we are in Black History Month and we're talking about Black Muslim authors? What would be your push for the type of support that you need from the larger Muslim community?
I think it boils down to connections. And I think, I know I might get pushback from this, but I think for as authors and as Muslims, you know, as African American Muslims and Black people in general, to not be afraid to step into rooms where no one looks like us, and to have that seat at the table and to show up as our full selves. I think that's happening a lot more, and to not have the preconceived notion that you're going to get pushback, but to believe that you're going to be embraced. And I think that the culture is changing, not just inside the Muslim community, but with outside the Muslim community, where people are more open to hearing and understanding different viewpoints. So I think this is a prime time to be more outspoken and to tap on the shoulder of mainstream, and to show, not to dilute yourself, but to show up as your full self and expect to be received. So I think that for me, when I did Bashir and Amazing Bean Pie at the Please Touch Museum, I was, and the majority of the audiences were not Black, not Muslim, and they loved the play. And we had Alhamdulillah in the play, we had Inshallah in the play, we had, the premise was the relationship between an African-American Muslim and her Pakistani Muslim best friend. And the push and pull of her loving her bean pie, but being made fun of it in her Muslim school. And this was dealing with these interreligious problems, but showing it on the main stage. And for her as Bashira to, in the play, was being very proud of who she was, her pop, making sure that she understood where she came from, and to foster that love and understanding that we are all one community, one ummah, and not just an ummah as in Muslims, but an ummah as in the human race. And as Muslims, we know that it is our duty to be a representation, not just for Muslims, but a representation for humanity to look at. So I think that the more that we see that as our as something that we need to do, then we'll see that we are received, you know, a lot better than we thought we might not be.
I want to piggyback on what Sister Amina was saying, connections. A lot of the stories written by Muslim authors, I didn't know about. You know, my friends and my core group of friends, if they found a book, they're like, oh my gosh, you gotta get this for your daughter, or look at this, you know, it represents us, we should get this book. And I think that there's the need for it out there. People want those type of books, but just don't know about them as readily as all the other books that you will see that are advertised and things like that. So I think like Sister Amina was saying, it just boils down to your connections and who do you know, and those that have read the book to kind of spread the word through the community and abroad, especially now that we have social media and all those different platforms, to say, hey, look, this is a good book. Are you talking about this in your, you know, speaking as a teacher, are you talking about this, or we'll be talking about this in your classroom? This is a great book for this, or any of those kind of things. Month, like, oh, Black History Month, these are some good authors and stories to read for your children or your students. And I really think it boils down to just getting the word out, because there is a need, or there is a definite need for these types of literature and materials. It's just a matter of trying to find them.
And if I can just piggyback off of what everyone else said and add that one of the things that I feel needs to be done, especially with my platform, speaking of something that we don't want to talk about, is breaking down the barriers of prevention, and letting everyone know that it's okay to talk about this, that and that we should talk about it, and that we should become educated, and that it does affect the Muslim community, and that we want to light fire under our feet so that we can speak out, so that we can be supporters of those who experience trauma, And how can we support them? By letting them know that we're speaking about it and that we're not keeping it in the dark. And so that we can empower children, we can educate teachers, we can educate children, educate parents, educate our community. So by breaking down the barriers of disinterest, you know, because many schools may not be interested in it because, oh, I don't want to bring this dark subject. So if I break down that barrier, I'm not interested in it. Break down the barrier of not being educated. And how do we educate ourselves? By way of my book, because my book is also used as it has a discussion tool in the back to help parents to talk about sexual trauma, to talk about prevention, to teach their children body safety rules and safety circles, and also to eliminate this darkness of this denial. Oh, it's not going to happen to my child. We Muslim, we don't do this. So once, you know, I do that and we do that together as a community, this can help us to reach the broader audience. Because yes, it's beautiful and wonderful to talk about a dress, to talk about a bean pie, to talk about a kufi, to talk about a kimar. But when we talk about sexual abuse, no, I don't want to hear about that because that's scary, that's dark. I want to be happy. So we, if we come together as a community and shed light, and when we hear about this and purchase the book and read the book and educate your children, educate yourself, then we can reach the larger community because because we do know this does exist in our communities, even if we don't want to believe it, it actually does happen.
Absolutely. You know, representation, again, going back to that representation, and highlighting the universality that we as Muslims have with the larger community, whether you're talking about sexual violence. And that's something that I have dealt with, not in my children's book. I wasn't brave enough as you to deal with that, but in my adult fiction novels, I have addressed that, as well as um, alcoholism and sexual abuse and many other issues I have addressed in my young adult novels, because I think that that especially is something that our older youth have to be aware of. But I think you're a trailblazer to do it for the younger children, because it is something that has always been an issue for every community. But we do have a question from the audience, and they want to know, especially for all of these children's books, do you feel that children's books are moving towards audiobooks, and are you all interested in creating audiobooks?
I think there's always going to be a need for, you know, actual books. You know, especially in children. Children learn by feeling and turning the page and being able to look, you know, physically at a book. I think that maybe an audio companion to books is definitely going to, you know, being able to have, you know, to listen to the author or your favorite celebrity read a children's book on Audible. You know, I'm big on, you know, I have every day I'm listening to my Audible. But for children's book, you know, it's important to see the pictures, you know, at least for children's books. I think that is important. But to have an audio companion, that is something that I am looking forward to exploring with Bashira and the Bashira series. But I don't personally think that we're going to move away totally from having an actual physical book when it comes down to picture books.
I too plan to add an audio companion for my book. A lot of children, I want the child that may not be able to read to be able and doesn't have anyone to hear them read, to be able to hear the story and look at the pictures. I want them to hear Buddy's voice and to come alive with Buddy. When I was teaching kindergarten, we had breakfast time, and we would always have breakfast story while the children were eating their breakfast, and they would hear the story. And you know, because we had to get a certain amount of hours in for the children with literacy, so we would turn on a story for them to listen to. But without a shadow of a doubt, I'm going to keep the picture books. You know, I'm going because, like you said, it's for children, and so that they can, one, representation is so important too. It's colorful, it's beautiful. They can see the icons of Buddy looking like a superhero. You know, he's cute. He's cute. The kids are cute, and you know, children they like pictures. You know, even the child, like we said before, the child that's 3 years old who can't read, but can see the pictures. It's very important to keep a book in hand and not just have audio for children at least.
I agree. I think literacy is so important, especially in our community. So I love the concept of the audiobook, but I really do think we need that, to strengthen our kids and make sure that they are just as sharp when it comes to being able to read and understand. As because we know Black folks, we know how to express and hear things audibly, but it's a little more difficult when it comes to, at least I found, it's a little more difficult, especially with my boys, to get them to focus on the literary aspect of understanding something.
Yeah, I totally agree. Another, educator chiming in. It's really important for children to have books, right? They need to hold it. They need to see the pictures. You can do so many sort of literacy activities just with the book. You could survey the book. You could look at the pictures. You could guess the gist. You could guess, the ending, the beginning, the middle. It's really important, even for non-readers. Of course, audiobooks would be great, but even for your non-readers, having a book and seeing the book, holding the book, especially for those who are on the autism spectrum, holding it and touching it and seeing those pictures is going to activate other skills. So we need books. We gotta have a physical books for our kids.
And also
it's
the
definitely a great
heirloom.
literacy, huh?
No, I was saying, for books being heirlooms, passing down books from generation to generation. I'm thinking about how I had my Sweet Pickles books, aging myself from when I was a kid, and being able to pass down books or having books like, oh, this is my mother's book, or this is my, when I was a kid. So I think that's important for it to have something physical to have in your hands that, you can easily delete audio, or audio could somehow just disappear. But if you have a physical copy of something or anything, I think that's important.
We had another comment from Sister Khadija, and she was saying, Salaam alaikum. As someone who is also a contemporary YA author, our community has a bad habit of ignoring the real things our teens face. Sadly, I have faced pushback from other Muslims because I am accused of airing Muslim dirty laundry. As a Black American Canadian, I tackle topics others may avoid. And how have any of you faced any pushback for your writing?
I experienced pushback before the book even came out, and it was, why are you going to write a book like this? It's not something that the community wants to hear, wants to talk about. You're making people feel uncomfortable. No one wants to hear about this. So the pushback came before I actually wrote the book. But after the book came out and people read it and they saw how it could help their children and even help them as a survivor to have the conversation, because it's so difficult to even have the conversation with your children if you're a survivor, because it's triggering for you too. So yes, initially my entire foundation and everything that I speak about, it was pushbacks. Even with me sharing my own story of my abuse. Why are you talking about that? No one wants to hear that. It's dark. It's scary, and it happens on a regular basis. However, it just helps me to keep on going when I know that I'm supporting other children, when I'm supporting adult survivors, when I'm bringing awareness. And the more you push back, the more I'm going to push through, because we have to talk about this, even if we don't want to.
Barakallahu feek. So now we're going to go to a portion where if you would like to read an excerpt, and that was another question, like, are they going to read anything? Yes, for those who would like to read, please. Sister Nafisah, would you like to read anything?
Sure, I have
All
it.
right. Yeah, let's see these books. Let's see her. Oh, she's so pretty.
And a little bit of background. I think someone spoke before about the hardest part being the illustration. and I went through a lot with trying to find an illustrator. And so I ultimately relied on the publishing company that I self-published with to find pictures. But what I had did before, because I just got so like overwhelmed, is went and took pictures of each page that I wanted. So we went to the fabric store with my mom and my daughter. We took pictures everywhere. We took, you know, wherever it was in the story. And then I kind of used like a cartoonized app because I was thinking I could do that way. But then as I thought about it, I was like, maybe it's not what I wanted. So a part of me was like, don't settle, you know. And then a part of me was like I'm probably never going to find someone that can illustrate it the way that I want. So a lot of the pictures are what I sent the illustrator of the cartoonized picture that I had taken of my daughter and myself. So they kind of use that as a background. So I didn't have to go a lot of back and forth because they had a visual of what I had what I wanted for those pages. But yeah, the story is called Zara's New E-Dress. I'm just read the first 2 pages and show the pictures just to get a gist. Every Ramadan is an exciting time for Zara. Not only does she get to see her friends at the mosque every night and eat delicious foods from around the world, but she can't wait to shop for her Eid dress. I don't know if you can see the pictures. How you can see the pictures. One year, Zara and her friend Sana wore matching salwar kameez that Sana brought back from her visit to Pakistan. Last year, Zara decided she wanted to wear an abaya just like her friend Noura. However, this year for Eid, Zara wanted to wear a dress that was uniquely her own. She wanted something that showed her style, her heritage, a reflection of her culture as an African American Muslim. You can kind of see the pictures. So.
Shukran. Who's next? Who's next? And that was Zara's New E-Dress by Sister Nafisah Abdul Rahim.
Awesome. I can read, I was going to read, well, I'm reading about Bashira, but in the Bashira universe. So this is Bashira and the Amazing Bean Pie. But I'm going to be reading Bashira and the Horrible, Not So Amazing Holidays, which was published in the NBA Muslim anthology, which our sister was one of the editors. And inshallah, I will read a little bit about that. So Bashira and the Horrible, Not So Amazing Holiday. So this excerpt doesn't have any pictures. So inshallah, it will be published as a full scale picture book, probably 2021, inshallah. So Eid is stupid, Bashira shouted in her room, throwing her favorite doll across the bedroom floor. It landed with a small clunk, nearly missing the sparkly pencil case on her dresser. Stupid, boring, and stupid. Bashira plopped down on her bed and gazed in wonder out the window at all the pretty lights strung up on nearly every house on her block. Green lights, red lights, twinkle lights, and big red bows on all the light poles. From her second story window, if she squinted hard enough, she could see the large tree in town shining in all of its glory. She knew Eid was not dumb, and throwing her favorite doll on the floor wasn't going to change anything. It wouldn't be so bad if her best friend Fatima and the Chaudhry family didn't have the best Christmas decorations on the block, maybe even the whole town. But Mom had put her foot down once again. Just like with Halloween, she didn't get to dress up like a unicorn or go trick-or-treating with the other kids in class. From October to January, life was pretty horrible. Horrible, stupid, and boring. Bashira retrieved her diary from its super secret hiding place under her bed. On a fresh white page, she wrote with her fuzzy tip pen, December 22nd, stupid, boring, and stupid. She remembered she wanted to work on a few fancy big words and opened her thesaurus. What's a fancy word for boring, she thought as she skimmed down the page with her finger. She stopped in the middle of the page full of B words and said, boring, no interest, dreary, dull, stuffy, and tedious. She crossed out the word boring and replaced it with monotonous. Proud of herself for sounding smart, she even when complaining, she closed her diary and stashed it again in its hiding place. She plopped down on her bed again, rolled on her back, and stared at the ceiling. Her mind drifted to apple picking, making bean pie with Pop Pop, ice skating at the town rink and sledding with daddy on the big hill. Letting out another humph, she thought to herself, okay, maybe the fall and winter months are pretty cool, even without celebrating Christmas. So that's an excerpt from Bashira and the Horrible, Not So Amazing Holidays. And it addresses how our children feel, like actual feelings of Christmas time, and not feeling as though we do a good enough job when it comes to celebrating Eid, and that's on us. So it's a part of the Bashira universe, and it's published now. If you can get your copy, it's right on Amazon. NBA Black Muslim Reads, and it has authors from all over the diaspora, from poetry, children's book, mystery, and all of that. And you can also get Bashira and the Amazing Bean Pie on Amazon as well, inshallah.
All right. Who's next?
Okay, I'll read from My Voice Is My Superpower. Okay. Hi, friends. My name is Buddy. I'm 9 years old. Today, I'm going to teach you the body safety rules and how to use your voice as your superpower. Today will be a great day. I'm getting ready to spend the night over my cousin Keisha and Steve's house. Mommy finally said yes. We always have fun together. I need to pack my bags and get ready to go. Have you ever spent the night out before? How did it make you feel? I also make sure I have my superpower ready just in case. I take it wherever I go. It helps keep me safe. Do you know what your superpower is? What is my superpower? My voice. I can use it to tell if I feel unsafe. I can help my friends with my superpower and say stop or no if someone breaks the body safety rules. My voice is my superpower. Mommy has been teaching me the body safety rules since I was 3 years old. We go over them all the time. She teaches me them so she can help protect me. Now, Buddy, Mommy says, tell me the body safety rules. Who does your body belong to? My body belongs to me. I'm the boss of my body. My body belongs to me. If I don't want someone to touch me, to kiss, or kiss me, I can say no. It doesn't matter if it's a family member or an older kid or a grown-up who is nice to everyone. We all have body parts like arms, legs, hands, and feet. Everyone can see those. But there are other parts of our body that's called private parts. They're covered by swimsuits and kept private. What does private mean? It means no one can see them. They're just for me. Your mouth is a private part too. Even though people can see it, it is still private and no one is allowed to touch it or make you do anything with it that breaks the body safety rules. Some people give their private parts funny names, like hot dog, or for boys, or cookie for girls. We should always use their correct names and not feel shy. They're a part of our bodies. So that's just a few pages of the book. And as you can see, that it's teaching the rules, it's teaching the body safety rules, but it's doing it in a friendly way. And if you want to purchase this book, you can find it on my website, www.buddyspeaks.org. It's on Amazon too.
All right, Sister Janette, you are up.
Mine is Samira's hijab in the first day of school. And let's see. Okay, so she's in school. After the parents had exited the classroom, Ms. Pierce went over the rules for good behavior and then announced a project that the students would be working on. She split the children up into groups of 4 around the room, and they were to make nameplates from construction paper for taping to the fronts of their desks. Samira was seated with Maria, Hillary, and Shauna. They were all busy drawing with the colored pencils and markers that had been placed in the center of every table when Maria asked, "Why are you wearing that scarf on your head? Are you cold?" Shauna and Hillary looked up at Samira too when they heard Maria's question. "No, I'm not cold. It's my hijab," Samira replied. "Did you know that you can't wear hats or scarves in school?" Maria asked again. "You might have to go to the principal's office. I wouldn't want to see you get in trouble." "It's okay," Samira replied. "My mom spoke to the principal about it during the summer. It's what I wear to show that I am a Muslim." "What is a Muslim?" Hillary asked, her own curiosity sparked by Samira's willingness to answer Maria's questions. "A Muslim is someone who believes and submits to God," Samira replied. "Oh, wow. Then can I be a Muslim too? I believe in God. We go to church every Sunday and learn about God in Sunday school," Shauna said. "Can I also have a hijab? Where did you get yours?" And this is, just about hijab and how Samira is able to bridge part of who she is as a Muslim with the children in the public school. And it's available on Amazon.
Excellent. I was sitting here thinking, which one would I do? Showing The Princess and the Good Deed is one of my old babies. I haven't read it in a long time. This book is about animal rights in Islam, a subject that we don't often talk a lot about to children. And it deals with dogs because I think that's a taboo subject for Muslim families. Like, how do we treat dogs? Do you like dogs? Can you be good to dogs? And so there's a dog that comes into a Muslim community who is not treated very fairly by the Muslims. And so the princess has to learn to teach her companions and her friends and the other people in the community to respect and to love and to be kind to all of Allah's creatures. And of course, also that because we also need more Muslim princesses and more fairy tales on our shelves. So this is The Princess and the Good Deed, an Islamic fairy tale. And it starts with, of course, every fairy tale starts with once upon a time. Once upon a time, there lived a princess named Juwayriyah. Princess Juwayriyah lived in the beautiful Charity Land. Charity Land was filled with many different types of friendly animals to play with, kind people, clean flowing rivers to drink from, and lots of delicious fresh fruits, fish, and vegetables for everyone to eat. Every day, the princess would take a walk through the park with her friends, Safe the cat and Meme the bird, to check on all the flowers she planted. It made everyone in Charity Land happy to have such beautiful plants growing in the park. They would always tell Princess Juwayriyah so. Delighted, she'd smile and tell them, "Alhamdulillah for all that Allah has blessed us with. I'm just a little girl who loves to lend a helping hand and do good deeds for everyone in our land." But one day, Safe the cat and Meme the bird came to play with Princess Juwayriyah. Tag and hopscotch were their favorite games to play. Boy, oh boy, did the three friends have lots of fun. But when the muezzin called the adhan for prayer, they always stopped their games and skipped along the way to the big red barn. And here is when Princess Juwayriyah sees the dog around the big red barn where they all were praying. So she pats him on his head. After Princess Juwayriyah finished offering her prayers, she prepared to get ready to go home with her parents. But first, she had to help her mother tidy up the prayer area and collect trash to throw away. As she cleaned, a small reddish-brown Pomeranian dog walked up to her. The little fluffy dog began to pant and whimper. Princess Juwayriyah smiled and then began to giggle. "Are you thirsty, my friend?" she asked the dog. He shook his head up and down, then sat down beside her. Princess Juwayriyah walked over to the water cooler, poured her new friend a cup of water, and brought it back to him. As soon as she placed the cool spring water in front of the little dog, he began to slurp it up. "Whoa, slow down, my friend. You don't need to drink anything before you say Bismillah," she instructed the dog. He looked up and smiled at Princess Juwayriyah. Then he thanked her for reminding him with such good words. And that is a little bit of Princess and the Good Deed. And of course, you can get that on my web pages or on Amazon. We are going to get ready to wrap up, but we do have a couple of more questions from the audience. So let me get to that. And we are also waiting for, I believe we are also waiting for Layla to return. Another question from the audience was, how has writing and publishing your book strengthened you as a person? It's a good one.
Writing my book and publishing it has strengthened me to be able to reach larger communities, to be able to assist with breaking, as I'm going to keep on saying, breaking the silence and breaking down barriers. It helped me as a survivor, to be able to connect with other survivors, smaller children, older children, and to know that, this is my voice, the voice that I didn't have when I was little, I now have as an adult, and speaking for other children who were living in silence and helping other parents. So it strengthened me to be able to create programs, to be able to support survivors, to be able to speak out and not feel scared, not feel ashamed, not worry about what other people think. And most importantly, to get the message across, which is prevention is possible through education and awareness.
Thank you for sharing today, Sister Sharia, Barakallahu Fiq, for all that you're doing, because for sure it is definitely necessary in our communities, in all communities. Sister Janette.
Let's see. I'd say the most significant way it strengthened me was in giving me the confidence to be able to produce something. I was a stay-at-home mom for much of my adult life. So stepping out to set up my own publishing company, even though it's just a desktop publishing company, it strengthened my character and made me better able to stand for what I believe in.
Thank you. Sister Amina.
As we know, as authors and as Muslims, it is important for us to make the world better, and also to leave something for the next generation. So I think as authors, we're able to put something into the world that is going to, inshallah, inspire the next generation and to teach the next generation. I think all of our books are really unique, and really are needed for children. And so I think that for me, being able to write, and even though it wasn't my original goal to be an author, and I was following my mother's aspirations, may Allah have mercy on her soul, I realized that I actually do like writing. So and it opened up additional doors. So I think that for anyone who is thinking about writing, and if you've always loved writing, to not put it off, to believe in yourself. It allowed me to pivot into something that I've always wanted to do. Writing is addictive, like Layla said. So it's that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to leave something for the next generation. Writing allowed me to partner with the Please Touch Museum. Writing allowed me to be featured in Essence magazine, to be, a more Islam out in the mainstream as something positive. So I think for anyone who is thinking about writing, it is a great addition to making yourself a more well-rounded individual. So for me, it was really eye-opening and beautiful.
And Sister Nafisah.
I would think writing this book just allowed me to be more assertive in a way. Usually, if I'm working with others, it's like, oh, you know, I compromise a lot to whatever the greater good is of whatever project I'm working on. What I found with Zara's New E-Dress, I didn't want to compromise on how I wanted it to be. So, which is was just very new for me. So when I got my first illustrations, I wasn't particularly happy with them, but I wanted to encourage the illustrator. Was a new illustrator out. They had never done anything like this before, and a part of me wanted to continue on with them just because I wanted them to grow too. But then at the end of the day, it's like, what do you want for your story? You're not just writing this and just putting it out to look any kind of way. You want to make sure the story goes with the pictures. So I think it just has made me be a little bit more assertive to things that are important to me, to not kind of compromise those certain things.
Excellent. I agree with all of you, everything that you said. Inspiring the next generation, but also inspiring ourselves and inspiring our friends and inspiring our families, inspiring our community to see us, to hear our stories, whatever our focus is, whatever our passion is. I often tell my students, you know, write something good, you know, whatever that good is for you. It could be a hard subject. It could be something that's silly. It could be something that's fun. It could be something that is inspiring. It could be something that is about math. It doesn't matter. Write something that is good to you, and that is going to represent you. And I think as Black American Muslim authors, we check off a lot of boxes. There's often so many hurdles to overcome. But alhamdulillah, you all have put out the work and you are doing the work, more importantly, right? It's a challenge to put the work together, but to get the work into our communities, alhamdulillah, it is a legacy, right? It is a legacy that is important to our communities. It is important to our own families. And inshallah ta'ala, it will be important for us, right? That we put forward to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, oh Allah, you know, I did this for you. I did this to help somebody. And that we can throw it onto our scales, inshallah, of good deeds. So this is heavy work. It's not always easy work, but, you know, again, we are here to say that, inshallah, that this is a necessary work, a necessary work. Our stories are necessary. Our visions are necessary. In writing, not only is it addicting, but it is necessary for our communities. So here is my partner, Sister Layla Abdullah Polos. Go ahead, sis.
Assalamu alaikum. This was amazing. And you guys know I'm typically very blunt and honest. And I was excited about this panel. And I was a little biased because when it was, I've worked with a few of you. Okay, I've had the opportunity to work on projects with you. I've had the opportunity, like Black Muslim Reads, I've had the opportunity to edit some of the books. And so I know how dynamic and how important they are. And I just was like, this is Black Muslim women authors. They're going to bring something that nobody else brings and a perspective that nobody else brings. And all of you definitely delivered about the inspiration, about representation, and about just the overall writing experience as well. So I think it was really, really important. So Jazakallah, this was fabulous as usual, as I expected. Alhamdulillah. So thank you all for coming. Thank you everyone for joining us. I mentioned in the comment section that 3 of these wonderful authors, Ameenah Muhammad Diggins, Sharia Schultz, and Juwayriyah, have contributed to the first Black Muslim Reads anthology. We're working on the next one. So you can grab that and you can get all 3 of them at once. Okay, as well. Pick up all of these books. I cannot believe it's just like I had gotten so sick and tired of Kimar books, like hijab books. Like I got so sick and tired of hijab books. It's to the point where when I look at a cover and it's like this person's hijab or that person's hijab, I'm just like, okay, thank you. My kids have enough of that. But that nude dress one, I gotta get that one because I mean, you guys tap on things. It's not just about the surface level thing of wearing it, but if it's fashion, like trying to pick out a new one for Eid. If it's about dawa, about a friend asking questions about that, and not in a negative way, not as like, oh, it's always everyone's bullying and that's how they find out about hijab. That's not always the case. So it's wonderful. And of course, it's just like, whether it's about really coming to grips with what we know as part of Sharia, but also the humanity of Sharia also, which can also get lost, which is in The Princess and the Good Deed, was about our culture and how and dealing with the fact that reality is that we live in a diverse society. There are people who have different faith, non-faith than us, and as a minority group, we're exposed to a lot of stuff, and so are our kids. And so, how do they work through those processes of even like, oh, look how pretty those lights are, and why can't we do that type of thing? The other Muslims are doing it. Don't
I
make
realized
me.
my mic was.
Don't, but it's
That's real.
It's real, it's rich, and it's complex, and that is something that the Black Muslim authors have been bringing to the table over and over again. And you're definitely going to get pushback. You're definitely going to get pushback because it's not something that everyone's comfortable with, but they don't have to be. That's okay. They don't have to be comfortable with it. All right. Thank you, all my wonderful authors. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I've clicked the link, and I think it's also pinned at the top for Black Muslim Reads. You can visit the BMACon, Black Muslim Authors Conference, our conference page, and there is a book fair. And so there are links to all of these authors as well, and all of their wonderful books. And remember, on the 28th, we're going to be having a book fair. So authors who are participating have made their books, some of their books, 99 cents. So you can get some great reads for 99 cents. So do not forget that. We have a giveaway. Those two people who subscribed for conference updates were the first ones to get access to this giveaway. But now we have given access to everyone here, okay, who have joined the live. All right. And so it is it is 5 physical youth books. Okay. Includes Princess and the Good Deed and My Voice Is My Superpower and Bashir and the Amazing Mean Pie. I think, Janette, you're donating 2 books, right? All right.
Two.
I'm gonna catch you, go catch. And so, and not only amazing books, and read Muslim fiction t-shirt, and a $10 Amazon gift card. Okay, so you guys can get a little snack and sit down and read all of your books. So the link is there. Okay, so just remember to click that link and participate and enter for a chance to win. I want to thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, About Islam, our sponsor, for hosting. Remember to visit us at www.aboutislam.net and see what's going on. Not only on the Facebook page, we got some interesting articles and all kinds of stuff going on there. We're on Instagram and we're on Twitter as well. Okay, I want to thank our sponsors, Hod Hijab, Muslim Anti-Racism Collaborative, Heart Women and Girls, Daybreak Publishing, African American Muslim Alliance of Tampa, the Muslim Connection, NBA Muslims, Muslim Girl Reads, and Every Kind of Lady. Okay, and you can find out more information about all of our great sponsors on our conference page as well. Our next panel is poets. Okay, so do not miss our poetry panel on Thursday at 7 p.m. was with the amazing Nazima Hutchins, and she's got some great poets. So it's going to be deep. Have your fingers ready and everything like that for all that deepness.
Get your incense and your lighters.
Your incense and your lighters,
For
get your
Nazima.
mood and everything like that, and get ready, inshallah. So we will see you at the next panel. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.